Hey guys, so I've been meaning to do this video for quite a while. I've just been in the middle of moving house and resettling into my new energy, my new future, my new signature. And there's been a lot of upheaval and a lot of reorganizing, reconfiguration, a lot of processing. You know how it is, how it goes. But I just wanted to get into some of the deeper stuff now. Now that we've established a bit of a baseline of understanding, and I really want to start going deeper into the invisible structures of the mind, frames of reality. We talk a lot about beliefs now. Beliefs are a really hot topic at the moment, changing of beliefs. And it's like it's this new thing, but it's always been there, and it's been around for a long time. And really it's only sort of the beginning stages, because some of you have been going through transformational work, change work. You've changed your beliefs, but then you've come up against all this other resistance as well. And the thing that we've got to realize is that beliefs are attached to value systems, and value systems have a close relation to meta programs, right? And when you start to get into this level of thinking, and this is taken from neuro-linguistic programming point of view, but it also stacks in with the idea that we're in a hyper reality simulation, and that the world that we perceive as our reality is made up of information. And if it's information, then it's hackable, it's programmable, and it's changeable, and you can customize it to whatever you want. The only thing that's really stopping you or slowing you down is your skill level and your understanding of what you're dealing with. And so a lot of people, when they become aware of this realization, they start messing around with the programming that's been there maybe since you were born, or since you were very young, or it's been there for several years, and it's working perfectly to get you the results that you've been getting. So there's nothing wrong with the programming, and whether it's useful or not, whether it's good or bad, however you judge it, is meaningless. It's all about whether it's getting you what you want, and if it's not getting you what you want, then obviously we need to make some changes. But before you understand what you're doing, you don't want to fuck with the programs, because as soon as you do, it's like someone going on their computer, deleting all these back-end files, and then all of a sudden nothing works, and you're struggling just to do your daily tasks and open emails, and everything that used to be where it was and you're familiar with is now gone, and you can't access anything. So you've just forced yourself into a massive stressful learning curve when it's not even necessary. So it's better to take maybe the soldier's point of view, who goes in and assesses the situation very carefully and makes sure they know exactly what they're dealing with before they take action, and they gather a lot of intelligence on themselves and what programs they're dealing with, how they work, how they interact with each other. This is a really key component, is that you have to understand how different beliefs, value systems, meta programs interact with each other. Because it's like a bit of a Rubik's Cube. You get one side almost complete, and then you go to do the second side and it undoes everything. So you have to understand the patterns at these core levels. And so there was a interesting question that came up on another speaker that I watch from time to time, and I mentioned to him, and this is something that we'll talk about in another video later on, is how to maximize the programming you've already got going. Because like a lot of people with their computer or their phone or their iPad, you know, they're just using it on a surface level. There's so much potential in that device to do so many things as it is, but people are searching for the whiz-bang magic pill program that's going to fix everything and manifest their desire like a genie into reality. But that's still a magic pill thinking. And so, you know, one of the, like a lot of people that have a religious framework, you know, say Christian makeup, and it's a good look. I'm not knocking religion. It's great if you're getting started, but if you're really into this type of work, you don't want to stay there. You don't want to finish there. But if you're just getting into reprogramming yourself, then understand the deeper layers of the programming that you're already running. Okay, so in the example here, she was like, you know, I can't manifest things unless God approves of it. And so he said, you know, well, have you prayed to get your manifestation taken care of? And it's a simple little thing. It's sort of, it almost seems ridiculous when you call it out. But if that's the programming you're running, then why not use it up to its fullest and get the most out of the programming you've got? Manifest what it is that you want, and then once you've done that and you've got a handle on that programming, maybe you write up scripts, or you tweak your brain a little bit to do it easier and faster, and maybe you don't need permission from God anymore. Maybe you don't even need to pray. Maybe it's just automatically accepted that whatever you want to put out there is going to manifest. Okay, so you know, a good framework, for example, is a fractal frame pattern where every possibility exists simultaneously, and all you need to do is guide your attention to the potential where it's already a reality, and then close the gap from the reality that you're in to the reality of you being there, having it done already. And so this is where the work comes in, because once you've got the programming installed in the brain, it's all automatic, it's all unconscious competence. It's unconscious programming. You want it to become unconscious. So, like, you know, people who want to manifest more money, initially there's a lot of effort to manifest money, a lot of effort, you know, you're putting in effort, manifest. But then once you get a handle on it, you can do it pretty consistently. You sort of want it to be automatic. Like, you know, I attract money no matter whether I work for it or not. It just shows up. You know, miracles around money happen all the time, as an example. Now, they're great ideas and they sound like a little bit woo-woo, but once you've trained them in, then that becomes your new normal. And so this brings me to a deeper topic. It's more of an issue that I see that's sort of underlined epidemic, really, especially among the younger generation that we're working with at the moment, is there's this self-sabotage going on where it's like, you know, we've never been in a position in the world where we've had a more powerful tool like a mobile phone, smartphone, laptop, iPad, computer that's connected to a World Wide Web where you can virtually, you know, access anything. Any information that you want is at your fingertips. And we've heard this all before, you know, but I think my generation and previously especially, you know, there weren't a lot of options to gain access to information quickly, and to verify your research and your theories, and to call people on their bullshit. You know, you had to go down to your local library, and you were at the mercy of whatever catalogue they had there, or the library in the next town or suburb, and whatever was on the television at the time, which before cable was like 5-6 channels of whatever pre-programmed stuff that the network wanted you to see, and what was in the media, what was on the radio, what you could buy at the music store, the video store, the DVD store, and you're very limited to the content. And now we're in this virtual cornucopia of information, and especially the kids these days, I'm not saying all of them, but generally speaking, and when I talk to parents and guardians who are struggling to get their kids to learn new things, they're so attracted to this, let's call it low-level basic crap media, which is just there designed to capture attention, spike emotions, and create an addiction. Okay, and of course the kids don't know what's going on. They're just responding to this programming that the media masters are very good at capturing and captivating their attention, and the parents are letting it slide because they're stressed and they're busy and they're working 2 jobs or 3 jobs, and they're trying to pay bills and put food on the table, and they need a break, from the attention-grabbing kids, and in the moment, it suffices. It serves its purpose, but long term, they're going into this debt cycle that they're never going to get out of energetically and emotionally, unless there's a major intervention and a major bump in the timeline. And it's really heartbreaking to see, right? I think, to me, it's a little bit like what we saw in the early 2000s or mid 2000s, where around 2010 is where we started to see computer programmers and IT specialists, especially in security, going, we've got a big fucking problem. Within a very short space of time, the whole world's going to be dependent on technology in ways we can't even imagine yet. It's growing so fast we don't know where it's going, and all these devices at the moment are already vulnerable, and we need to work really hard to secure them and educate the population on security, because identity theft is a massive thing and credit card fraud is a massive thing, and that's, we're not even talking on a national level or a militarized level, and it took things like the movie Snowden to come out and to sort of shock the public a little bit and wake them up to dragnet surveillance, which a lot of people were shocked about, but there were movies back in the early 90s, what was the movie called, if I can remember it, The Listening, I think it was, where they told stories about the NSA bugging every landline phone before the mobile phones were getting really big, and they even said in that movie then, the only way to stop a potential attacker listening into your phone calls was to remove the battery on your mobile phone. Well, now you can't remove the battery on the mobile phone. That's not an option. It's a built-in option that's been removed. And so, now we've just got to deal with it, right? And whether you're for it or against it, it's irrelevant, okay? The point I'm trying to make is that now with spirituality becoming fashionable and popular, there's another element to that, of which is a lot more sinister and a lot darker, and I don't want to get into conspiracy theory or anything like that, but we're understanding that the mind is like a computer, a supercomputer, a quantum computer, that is not only programmable and has massive potential and abilities that we're still yet to unveil, but that it also is a reality creator and projector. And so if you can capture a person's attention and give them suggestions on what they should be thinking, then that energy that they use to focus upon a particular potential reality collapses, and then all of a sudden we're in a timeline that someone has brought about through focused intention. And so it's a bit like the people who really know how to do this are collecting people's minds, creating massive, huge networks out of people's focused attention, and then basically, telling them what they should be thinking through very skillful and artful programming. And networks of thousands of people's or millions of people's minds, or billions, depending on what scale we're talking about, collapses a particular potential reality into existence, and there it is, and so it is, so be it, as the old doctrines go. So I don't really think that's how it was intended to be used, right? It's an exploit of the technology that is alive, and it's bioenergetic in nature, and it is who we are. But I think the real purpose of the technology was for us to use it to create our own personal realities, co-create with the social mind consciousness consensus reality, but then also be independent of it as well, and create our own individual independent realities, whereby having the contrast between the two, it opens up potential for new things to pop into existence and for crossover to happen. The problem is, though, when people have too many minds linked together, the field gets so large that it cancels out and overrides other people's signals. And so it's a bit like, signal jamming. It's not about necessarily, it's pretty simple to jam a signal. You just need to have a signal that's more powerful than the other one. And so I once heard a neuro-linguistic programmer talk about frame control, and he said that he who has the strongest frame wins, right? She who has the strongest frame wins. And so it doesn't even matter whether it's true or not. And we've seen that, I'm not going to get into politics, but we've seen that happen forever, is that, if you can repeat a message long enough and convince enough people of its truth, even if it's not the truth, then it becomes the truth, even though it's not the truth. And another way of putting it that I heard is truth is just a perceived reality threshold. Beyond that, you go into the unknown, and then reality becomes a lot more flexible and malleable again. And there's benefits of living within these truth frame escapes, but they can become limitations and prisons of the mind. And so it's this balance between having complete freedom with no limitations and no boundaries and barriers, which can be overwhelming and terrifying in its own way. But then also, you don't want to be, that's like extreme left, for example, and then extreme right is too much control, totalitarianism, and world domination sort of thing, and that's just suppression and putting a cap on the way people think and talk and feel and how they can express and all that sort of stuff. So there's these two extremes, and in between we want to have this healthy balance, but it's very difficult when the general population are taught not to know how to play the game and aren't taught the rules and aren't taught the techniques on how to deal with it. And so, it's almost like this, the self-sabotage that I'm talking about is like this ignorance that we place on ourselves. And we're not in a time where we need to be anymore. We have unlimited information at our fingertips, literally at our fingertips. But what's lacking is the skill level to be able to search for information, to be able to research it and cross-reference, and how to make distinctions and discern the differences between probable realities and improbable realities or unlikely realities. And I know I'm speaking very generally because we're not talking about any particular topic at the moment, but we sort of need to understand how these frames work, the structure of reality, the scaffolding of reality, the framework of it, like what is all this stuff that we're trying to manifest and change attached to. And we can make changes all we like down the end of the branch, but at the end of the day, unless you're a really skilled grafter, the tree is always going to grow in the pattern, in the blueprint of its roots. And so sometimes we're just so busy trying to make changes to ourselves that we're sort of messing with ourselves, a bit like what we've seen with body conscious programming that women are being having shoved down their throats, and women just getting so caught up in imagery that they're losing their souls, they're losing their core essence. And thankfully we're seeing this re-emergence of goddess, feminine sensuality and feminine energy resurrection, workshops and things like that, and the divine masculine, divine feminine intimacy stuff to really get us back in touch with the core of what's going on. And yes, it's in the context of emotions and relationships, but there's also in the context of who you are and how you're made up that way and why and to what purpose. And sometimes it's all about, well, you're probably fulfilling the programmed purpose perfectly, but maybe the story that you're telling, maybe the story that you're acting in, maybe the story that you're the main character in, that you're writing and directing, it's not the story you want to be playing anymore. It's kind of like that actor that just has been doing 10 years of the same TV show. It's like maybe they've had enough and they want to do a new role. And breaking free from that old role can be difficult and met with a lot of resistance, depending on what level you're making your changes at. And so, I'll talk a lot more about this in more detail because it's quite a large, vast terrain we're talking about, a large map. we need to start, as abstract and as general as we can. So when we do start getting into the nitty-gritties and the nuances and the little ends of the branches on the trees, these networks, neural networks in the mind, when we get to the end of the branches, we're still maintaining the perception of the whole all the way back. Otherwise, it's very easy to get caught up and lost in these minor, lower level programs. And I don't mean that in a derogatory sense, I mean that in the chaining and sequences of the coding and scripting of these programs. You need to, if you're going to make changes, you might as well make them at the root, not at the end of the branch, where there's only 4 or 5 leaves that are going to notice the difference, to use a metaphor. So, I just wanted to get that over to you guys. I find that it's a lot easier for me to get in depth when there's something to work with in a particular area, and we can really get deep into stuff and start moving down the chain and stopping at the links on the way and revealing and unveiling what they can and can't do. And so, like I've said before, and I just want to recommend that before you get in there and start messing with yourself too much, is that you start gaining some intel on yourself and collecting some information on yourself and actually looking at what's actually going on, not what you would like to be going on, and not what you want people to perceive that is going on for you, and not what you're trying to get people to perceive. There's a lot more value in you understanding how things work exactly as they are, so then when it does come time to change them, you know exactly what you're changing them into, and it'll just minimize your effort and also the suffering that you go through making these changes. Because the other thing you've got to realize is that when you change your programming at an energetic, mental, emotional level, it must eventually translate into the physical, and that's your body and beyond your body into the environment, and there's growing pains with that. The body will change, just like when you're a kid growing up and you were exchanging the old child body for an adolescent body or an adult body. There were growing pains. It wasn't all pleasant, and one of the greatest skills that you can develop along the way is the ability to relax and feel the pain, basically. I once heard that Batman's superpower is his threshold for pain, and so the more pain you can stand without going into shock or rewiring your brain in a way that's not helpful to you, and anchoring yourself negatively. When you can relax through that transformation, that suffering period with pain, it doesn't always have to be painful, but commonly it is, right? You can set up things to be less painful and to go through it quicker, and that's what we want. Sometimes, unfortunately, there is no negotiating that process. There is a cost, there is a time frame, there is an emotion that must be felt and expressed, and that's just all there is to it. And so, rather than trying to negotiate that and to try and swindle life and trick it into letting you through when you're not ready or you don't have the ability, sometimes it's just easier to knuckle down, level up, learn the new information and the new skill, and then just do it. So one of the few keys is definitely focus, relaxation, and the ability to express your emotions non-destructively. And I'd like to get into that with more of you, and I do that through the workshops and the Q&As. And I see a lot of people liking, and a lot of people, giving me comments and encouragement, and that's all great. But I don't see many people actually getting on and doing it. And maybe you don't like the way I present, or you think, you're in a position where you don't need it, and that's fine. But if you really want to do the work, you've got to do the work. Simple as that. So I was talking a little bit before about beliefs, and sometimes we can have conflicting beliefs, and so at times they can be useful to have a bit of friction to propel you, right? Just like, the band Queen, there's a little bit of arguing going on, a little bit of push and pull between what goes into the album, what sounds are going to make the track, how the song should go, all that sort of stuff. And once that gets worked out, you end up with a hit song that goes number one and is an iconic sound that influences people all over the world for generations, right? So that kind of friction is good, but when you have conflicting beliefs where they just work against each other, you got a clashing going on, all that happens is it's like trying to drive a car with the brake and the accelerator on at the same time. It just burns you out. And so this is what I was saying before. It's really important to understand yourself, know thyself, before you get into any changes, because sometimes it's not like you need to scrap everything and start over again. Sometimes you just need to realize where these conflicting beliefs are, where you have this double bind going on, where you're supposed to try and hold two timelines at the same time that go in separate directions. It's just going to pull you to pieces. So sometimes it's not about scrapping the whole lot. It's not even about choosing. It's about releasing yourself from the need to choose, for example. And then you can move back and forward between timelines. It's like the old saying in Mr. Miyagi, left side, okay, right side, okay, in middle, squish, just like grape. So you don't want to be stuck in the middle. You want to make choices, but you want to be flexible so you can come back and forward between choices if need be. Especially when you're deciding on a new direction, you want to be able to, test out the different pathways, keep your options open, so to speak, but try them on. And then once you get some experience with these different options or these different belief systems, propulsion systems that you've got going on internally that create your reality, once you've had some experience with these, then you can make a more conscious, educated choice about what's good and what's not so good in terms of where you're going, what you want, and what your outcome is. But also, there's a lot of gems and a lot of gold in each pathway and each belief system and each propulsion system. And so you don't want to leave those behind. You want to collect all those things, and then maybe out of all those you distill down into an option or a potential timeline that has always been there, maybe you weren't aware of, or maybe you were aware of, you weren't sure how you could possibly do that. But you can blend them all together. Like someone once told me, once you have all the elements together, you have the fist of fury, and you can burst through that limiting belief, and you can break through into that new paradigm. And so this is the other thing that we need to really address, is that changing a belief here and there, it's not necessarily going to get you what you want, because you're still the person you were in the environment, in the timeline that you were, that we're obtaining or reaching that new level, or manifesting that new thing, experience, whatever condition in your body, maybe health-wise, for example, that was a non-possibility. So when we're changing these beliefs, these value systems, these meta programs, to use neuro-linguistic programming terminology, you're actually changing into a new paradigm. You're changing into a whole new timeline, a whole new reality, where there's a whole new you already existing there. And so what you're doing is you're unhooking yourself from that old past potential, and you're allowing yourself to slide in and slip into that new potential and embody that new body.
3 kilometers, take the exit towards Bruxner Highway B60.
Yeah, and then, the opportunity to move through into that new space just opens up for you. You don't even have to worry about it. And so there was something else I wanted to say too, which was really pertinent. I'll see if I can find it again. Before I was interrupted. Right there. Someone just came and moved all my papers off the desk. I have to allow it to come back in. Oh, that's right. Here's the other thing. So when you slip into that new potential, there are going to be slight variations that to you are different, but everyone in the new timeline potential reality, that's just the way it's always been. I know I've mentioned this before in other videos, but today it was a real obvious one for me.
800 meters, take the exit towards Bruxner Highway B60.
And so I was going in for coffee and breakfast into town, and there was a cafe there that I'd been to before, maybe a good year, 2 years ago maybe, and everything looked completely the same.
Take the exit towards Bruxner Highway.
But obviously, from my point of view,
600 meters, at the roundabout, take the third exit onto Bruxner Highway B60.
the name of the cafe had changed. The menus were different, which could suggest a change of ownership. But everything else was identical. And so I was speaking to Deb and I said, I don't remember the name of the cafe being what it is. I think it was something else. In fact, I'm pretty sure 100% it was something else. I just can't remember exactly what it was. And she says, oh, no, it was always this way, you know, it was the same thing. And so for her, she's always known it as that, but for me it was totally different. So here's the other thing.
The roundabout onto Bruxner Highway.
Is you're going to shift into these new
Continue on
timelines.
B60 for 19 kilometers.
You're going to shift into these new timelines, and everyone's going to perceive it as being how it always was. But you're going to know that it's different. Now, when this happens, it's like, you know, when did you slide into that new potential timeline? Did it happen, like for me, it could have been anywhere between the first time I went to the cafe up until the point where I was sitting in the cafe and noticed the sign. So it's really interesting, like, and this is where it gets really a little bit spooky, crazy, is how quickly does manifestation take place? You know, is this something that happened over many course corrections, over many jumps through time, or did it happen just then, or was it all set up to happen just then, or did it happen straight away and the whole time I've been adjusting? So either way, it's fascinating to show the different possibilities. And you know, the fractal frame multiple universe timeline theory, they all happened and they all didn't happen from whatever timeline you're orientated from. So here's the thing, like, how good is your focus? Can you focus in the present moment and put your energy into a new future? Make your adjustments, become accustomed, and then lock it in and just embody that new potential. Because I really believe that this is the true nature of reality, and it all comes down to your observation and your skill level in observing and adjusting. You know, we see it in people who travel a lot. You know, at first when you start traveling, you get jet lagged a lot. You know, the trips are really, sometimes they can be really rough. The more you do it, the more preparation you do, the more your body adjusts, the more you know what to expect, the easier it becomes. I'm not saying you don't get jet lagged ever, but you become more accustomed to it. Same with diving. You know, your body starts to get used to moving up and down through the depths and equalizing and decompressing and moving through timelines is a bit like both combined, you know, not just physically but psychologically and emotionally. When you're talking about big jumps through timelines and changing potential futures, we only need to look at the example of the movie Interstellar, where they go down to the planet where the gravity is different and time changes. And so when they get back, you know, they have this, you know, they're there, I think, an extra half hour or an hour longer than they should have been. They get back to the space station and 22 years have gone by. And so this comes into, you know, relativity and time and space being relative. It's really interesting stuff. And of course, you see the character played by, what's his name, Matthew McConaughey. You know, it's like he has a meltdown because he's expecting everything to be as it was, and when he gets there, 22 years have flown by, his kids are adults, the person that part of the crew that was at the space station, he's an old, you know, he's got grey in his hair, he's an old man, and it's just psychologically and emotionally, it's a massive jump, and it took him, you know, however long to adjust to the new reality and to let go of the old one, you know, and that's really can be quite difficult, is to let go of your past, not past in the past, but the past future timeline that you've just left. It can be disorientating, it can be nauseating, it can be traumatic. Okay? So you want to become accustomed to building yourself up to these big jumps. Everyone says, I want this quantum leap in my reality. Yeah, until you get it. And then it's like, how the fuck do I deal with this? Because no one in my timeline knows what I've just done. No one knows where I've just come from. Because everyone in that timeline is still back there. There is still a me playing out that timeline back there that I'm no longer conscious of. And I'm in this timeline, in this me now, in this body now, in this mind. And everyone here, to them, it's just how it's always been. Not only that, their memory of me in that past now, I have always been however I've been up until now. And so you have to deal with their perception of who you have been up until now as well. So, any questions? And so when you do break through, the time, space, reality will begin to walk around you. And so especially when you let go, you can be hit with a drastic change in your environment, like the weather. Okay? You can go from it being sweltering hot, almost unbearable, to torrential rain where you can't even see out your front windscreen. You have to go so slowly. And so I first noticed this when I would start to make small breakthroughs. There was usually some kind of change in the weather, like almost instantly afterwards. It's almost as though your conscious awareness is holding the whole reality together, like a dreamer dreaming the dream, where you are the environment as well as the body that you project into the dream as being inside it. And when you make those breakthroughs internally, whether they're a belief, depending on what you're working on, whether it's a belief, a motivation toward away from motivation, for example, a value system, which is a higher level attached to more things in the mind, where you go right up to a meta program or a core, core coding. And when I say core coding, I'm referring to things that are on huge scales, like we saw, why can't I remember the names? My brain's rewiring itself as we speak. In the Marvel stories, what's his name? Kronos? The villain with the gauntlet with the 5 Infinity Stones. Each Infinity Stone representing a core programming script, code, right? Core code of reality. It's like the reality stone. He has it, he changes his mind, and reality, like a curtain, changes around him. So don't be surprised when time and space begins to flux and change so drastically, almost instantly. That you can't not accept it as maybe you just created it.
there's thunder and lightning. Oh my god, look at the road! Daddy, look at the road! I've never seen it this hectic in my whole life.